again. But when you broke that at CNN, that was a real concern to a lot of people. I had a real concern also when I wanted to make sure transparency.
All right, that's Speaker Kevin McCarthy discussing transparency, pushing back on the media, discussing the January 6th videos that are released to the Fox News channel. And something that we don't hear enough of lately is how so many people were denied their due process. And to get to the bottom of that, I want to speak with the founder of the Patriot Freedom Project, Cynthia Hughes. Cynthia Hughes, welcome to the program.
Well, hello, and thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So let's discuss this. There's been a lot of reaction to the videos that are out there, and there's been, lawyers for several of the defendants have, now said, hey, look, we didn't have this video that seems to be exculpatory, and we want to, redo this, and people are requesting continuances and whatnot on current trials. What can you tell us? What's your initial reaction to all of this?
Well, what's really very concerning is that a lot of people, a lot of these, defendants who have been forced into very horrific plea deals, you cannot appeal once you have entered into a plea deal. I don't know if the release of all of this video footage that could show a lot of new evidence in some of these cases can undo this plea deal. And so it'll be interesting to see what a lot of the lawyers are going to do. As you know, or maybe you don't know, but tonight, just a little bit ago, the speaker did announce that now all of the video footage is going to be made available to the public. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm sure we're going to start to see a lot of, researchers with good skill sets and maybe private investigators really start combing through this video footage to help a lot of people. On Monday night, the first night of Tucker's week-long, airing of what's been hidden from the public, he did show video footage of Officer Sicknick walking around inside the Capitol after he allegedly had been sprayed and assaulted and hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Right, all of which we understand now never happened.
Exactly. And so I can tell you the two men that were accused of assaulting him, fortunately for George Tanios, all the felonies were dropped against him, and he pleaded to one misdemeanor, and he did no more jail time. He did his 8 or 9 months that he spent in pretrial, and he was fortunate enough to not have to go back. Julian Cater, not so lucky. He just was sentenced 6 weeks ago, and he got 80 months in prison. So, I put attorney Joseph McBride in touch with the Cater family, and we're going to see what that might look like now that we're seeing some evidence come out that might have been helpful to Julian's lawyers before he entered into this egregious, plea deal.
Folks, we're on with Cynthia Hughes. She's the founder of Patriot Freedom Project. Their website is dueprocessdenied.org. And it's great that there's someone like you that has their finger on the pulse of what's going on. But this denial of due process has really turned American citizens that were either exercising their First Amendment. Clearly there were, 800 or 1,000 people that were arrested. There weren't 800 or 1,000 people, in my opinion, breaking the law. Just look at the videos and you see the same faces are the ones that are like, banging the barricade or running around with the lectern under their arm. It's not 1,000 people that were ransacking the Capitol, at least from my view, maybe a couple of hundred at any given time. How did the government pull this thing off?
That's the $1 million question. This was definitely an inside job. And, there's a lot of people that were, in the D.C. jail, like my nephew, for example, who got to view a lot of his discovery that was under protective order, meaning nobody was going to be able to see it except the attorney, the prosecution, and the defendant. And there was a lot of things that he, saw in his discovery that was, not made available through his trial. There's a lot in the discovery that these men are seeing that the public has not seen yet that tell a very different story, unlike what the January 6th clown show wanted to tell us. And I think it's going to be very interesting over the course of the next, I'm going to say year and a half during the presidential campaign season, how this is going to play out and how all of this is going to get exposed.
And again, I just want to, circle back a little bit here because I think what you're saying is really interesting. With the videos being out and people having access to them, but many plea deals already being done, it really may be nothing, right? Ultimately, nothing can happen for a lot of people who've already suffered at the hand of this injustice, not the least of those, which perished and, some that committed suicide and whatnot. I mean, this was absolutely horrible. We've had guests on before who described their experience in being locked up. And it's shocking to me that it happened here in the United States. But again, these things happen, right? Whether it's a political event or not, there's always been people that were wrongfully imprisoned, and we hear those stories, and they're always terrible. But what was interesting with this case, in my opinion, was that there were not only were people saying, hey, look, I didn't do anything wrong, but then there were people that were kind of demonizing these people, saying, no, you did something wrong by virtue of existing because you were there and because you supported Orange Man Bad and you were at the Capitol, and therefore you must pay the highest price because we're going to come get you. Whether you're a New York City cop, we're coming to get you. If you're this, we're coming to get you. And, I mean, they found every last person they wanted to find. And, it amazes me when there's these smash and grab robberies and all these other things. They're like, oh, we can't find them. But, when it was January 6th, masks, no masks, doesn't matter. They found every last person. And it just makes me think this aggressive posture that the government took, they were trying to send a message, and I think they did, which was don't do this again. And I don't mean breaking into the Capitol or whatever in the video that we saw, but moreover, don't challenge the system and don't have such a large rally in D.C. To me, seems like the message that was being sent. Your thoughts?
Well, me personally, this was a total, number one, an inside job. And the reason being for that inside job was to stop Donald J. Trump from being on the ballot in 2024. And this government, or the people that, despise him, they used the American people as bait. They didn't care who they stepped on, who they devastated, who they hurt, as long as it's going to keep that man off the ballot. And in my new book, Due Process Denied, it's called Due Process Denied, the Detained, the Families, the Fallout. We describe with certain families in the book the devastation to them, what I call the collateral damage, and that lies within, the families of these defendants. You have men sitting in jail who lost their jobs, which means their wife is down in income. Some of these families have, 3, 4, 5 kids. They have lost health insurance at this point. What are these families to do? And I think it's a sick, sick thing, and more people in this country should really, be talking about this. The media should really be talking about this. The fallout and the collateral damage is to these families, and the destruction that is left behind after this government went and rounded up all of these people. We're over 1,000 people that are caught up in this. Not all of them are in jail or prison. We have over 200 people that are behind bars, and that number is only going to climb because I'll tell you, with the release of these videos, they are going to ramp this up. We've had 3 or 4 new arrests just in the past couple of days.
Wow.
It's really sick what is going on here. And who is going to stop this? We have an out-of-control government, an out-of-control DOJ, a very weaponized DOJ, and a very failed judicial system.
Cynthia Hughes is our guest. She's the founder of Patriot Freedom Project. PatriotFreedomProject.com is the website. Her book, Due Process Denied, The Detained, the Families, the Fallout. More on that and your calls straight ahead, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés. 877-833-4Valdés. That's Valdés with an S.
So the president believes we need to get to the bottom of what happened on a very dark day in our democracy. The president has been very clear about that. We need to get to the bottom of what occurred. The footage that we have seen, the footage that the American people have seen, is devastating. And what we saw was an attack on our Constitution, was an attack on our democracy. And we should be calling that out. And, members of Congress, all members of Congress should be working very hard to get to the bottom of that.
Seems like they are working to get to the bottom of it, starting with Speaker Kevin McCarthy releasing this video. And the footage that we have seen, some of it which was doctored by an ABC News producer, a former ABC News producer, who produced all of the video packages for the January 6th hearing. That's what the American people were fed, but it wasn't necessarily the truth. We're continuing our conversation on January 6th with Cynthia Hughes. She's founder of the Patriot Freedom Project, and she's the author of the book Due Process Denied, The Detained, the Families, and the Fallout. Cynthia Hughes, let's talk about what you personally experienced with some of these folks that have been imprisoned for political purposes, in my opinion, and how they were denied their Sixth Amendment and other constitutional rights.
We would need many, many hours, but I'll just touch the surface. I've connected with a ton of these families, and I founded the Patriot Freedom Project, after my own family got caught up in this. And he spent, maybe just not quite a year, but close to it, in solitary confinement, in true solitary confinement.
Now, let me just clarify. This is not a sentence, right? He wasn't sentenced to a year. He was awaiting trial?
Yes, he was in pretrial detention.
Right. So, if he would have gotten 6 months, they would have said, all right, time served, and you gave us an extra 6 months on the arm.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, he didn't get any time served. He got credit towards a 48-month sentence on nonviolent charges.
What were the charges?
So he was charged with an obstruction of an official proceeding, which is a felony charge. And it's a charge that was, kind of put together when the whole Enron thing was happening. This is a way for this government to get, a lengthy jail sentence on people. It's a way for this government to, kind of bully people into, a plea agreement. Where they'll threaten you with, 5, 6, 7 years in prison. And
Sure.
Some people are falling for that because they're so fearful. My nephew.
It's not uncommon. The government has always kind of played that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of these, men are not gonna, they're gonna fall on their sword. And that's what we're seeing. My nephew was found guilty, back in, April of 22. And he was sentenced the end of September of 22, and he was moved out of the D.C. gulag, thank God, the end of October, and he's now serving his prison sentence in New Jersey at a prison called Fort Dix.
Yeah, Fort Dix. It used to be an Army base. Might still be an Army base. I'm not sure.
It is. Part of it is still an Army base, and here's the irony in that, in the fact that he was, brought here to serve his time at Fort Dix. At the time of January 6th, he was a 12-year Army reservist. And when he went to the Capitol, he had a suit and tie on. He did not commit violence. He did not break anything. He did not assault anybody. He did go inside. He found a Trump flag on the ground. He skipped around in the what's called the crypt, which is basically the basement of the Capitol. For 30 minutes, he was told to leave, so he left. And for that, they said he obstructed Congress and he should spend, close to 5 years in prison. No
Wow.
criminal history. No criminal history. What I find, really most disheartening, the character of some people. Maybe some people have a bombastic, sense of humor, like my nephew. Maybe some people have, some kind of quirkiness to them, but it was private. Maybe they had some insensitive pictures on their phone. this is all out in the public now. These people are going to be, decimated forever, because some people are not going to forget what might have been released, to the public. Maybe somebody had an offensive picture like my nephew did, or they had, some really, crappy memes like my nephew did. Things that lived in people's laptops, people's cell phones, for their eyes only. When some of these men come out of prison, they're going to come out and they're still going to be facing, a jail term, if you will, in a lot of ways. Because some people, they're not going to forget. There is a crazy lunatic in this country right now who has dedicated his life to tormenting the families of these men.
Cynthia
Literally,
Hughes, hold on right there. I hate to cut you off, but we've got to take a quick pause. We're going to come back to this crazy lunatic and we'll discuss more about the Patriot Freedom Project and your book. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdés with an S.
All right, folks, our guest is Cynthia Hughes. She is the author of Due Process Denied, The Detained, The Families, The Fallout. Cynthia Hughes, a final word to you.
I was telling you that there's a crazy guy in this country
Yes.
who sends postcards to the wives, and he taunts them about their husbands. And, they get these postcards every single week. There are some very sick people in this country. But I don't want to waste my time about him. I encourage everybody to go to one of our websites, dueprocessdenied.org, where you can learn more about our book, Due Process Denied, The Detained, The Families, The Fallout. And we also have a docu-series coming out. Part 1 is going to be released actually tomorrow. And if you visit our website, you'll be able to see the first part in our docu-series for free. And I really encourage your listeners to come on there and see the terrible, terrible heartbreak and hardships on these families.
Outstanding work you're doing. Keep up the good work, Cynthia Hughes. Folks, check it out at dueprocessdenied.org. Get that snippet of the docuseries. Get a copy or two of the book. Give one to somebody who enjoys reading and let them learn something, because this stuff is eye-opening. Cynthia Hughes, I just want to thank you again for the work you're doing and for being on with us tonight.
Thank you so much.